What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and this is 5 Strange Facts, a show where we take a look at the weird side of gaming history. One of the most loved series of all time is Metal Gear Solid. Spanning across nearly 20 titles, it's become famous for its amazing gameplay, complex storytelling, and rather brilliant character design. And it's also become known that the deeper you dig into this franchise, the more bizarre it becomes. Due to that, this week we're digging back through the pages of time to count down 5 strange facts about Metal Gear Solid. Number 5. Lego levels. When the team over at Konami sat down to start development on the original Metal Gear Solid, they had a bit of a problem. None of them had ever worked on a 3D game before. While these guys were very skilled, it was just not an idea that they could quite grasp yet. To get around this, the lead director came up with an idea. Instead of drawing maps out on paper, everything would first be built with Legos. This might sound simple, but really it was a genius plan. It trained everyone to think of problems with three-dimensional solutions, and that's probably why so many of these fights felt so far ahead of their time. Personally, I just love this piece of trivia because it's fun to think of Hideo Kojima handcrafting all these awesome levels with tiny blocks in his office. Number 4. Meryl's secret origin. Many of the heroes and villains we face off against in Metal Gear Solid can be rather mind-bending. From a sniper who's over 100 years old to a psychic mass murderer, you can never be sure what your next impossible obstacle will be. For this reason, the character Meryl always stood out from the rest of the cast. Overall, she's the most normal person in this whole robot-filled universe. That is, until you find out where she came from. This is a game you probably haven't heard of called Policenauts. It's a very unique, futuristic mystery title released only in Japan. Notice a familiar face? Yep, that's the real Meryl. Even though this game wasn't popular worldwide, Policenauts director Hideo Kojima was fascinated by this particular character and really wanted to find a way to reuse her. When he had to design a dangerous, military-trained killer to back up Snake in Metal Gear Solid, he finally had his chance to pull her to the present. It's kinda silly to think that Meryl has officially existed in 2 separate plot lines that happen hundreds of years apart, and yet, she keeps this crazy haircut. Number 3. Metal Gear Solid 2's cut ending. Few games have ever had a more surprising twist than MGS2. The opening 3 hours we play as Solid Snake on his latest deadly mission, but then it switches over to a new person altogether. This is Raiden, the most controversial character in the Metal Gear series. In the final build of the game, this can seem strange, perhaps even out of place when you see that the rest of the franchise goes back to focusing on Snake. This was all done to build up to a very different last boss fight. The goal was to have an ending more in the style of a classic samurai film. They wanted Arsenal Gear to crash land in the middle of Manhattan Island, essentially destroying New York City. Images of a destroyed Statue of Liberty and American flags being lowered would fill the scene, but this was determined to be a little too realistic since 9/11 had happened so recently. Although I still enjoy the trippy climax that we got, I do wish we could have seen this more dramatic, original ending for ourselves. Number 2. The 3 meanings of solid. In some Japanese games, a name can carry a lot of power. This is definitely the case when it comes to Metal Gear. The executives at Konami have let slip that when they were bringing the series to the PlayStation, they wanted people to instantly know that this was a major title. Because of that, they wanted to put Solid on the front of the box for 3 reasons. First is of course due to Solid Snake's codename. Secondly, this was hinting to anyone who heard the name that this would be a fully 3D experience. Up to this point, Metal Gear had been flat stealth games, and they knew that to get extra attention, they better be clear with just how big of a turning point this was going to be for gaming. The third reason is a bit more devious. At the time, their biggest competitors were SQUARESOFT. In an effort to try and bolster their team's spirit, they started thinking, what's bigger than the all-powerful Square? A solid block. It may seem goofy, but the developers really got behind the idea of really sticking it to their rivals anytime they talked about their project. Number 1. Stories too crazy for Kojima. If there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that Metal Gear Solid has some of the most twisted plots ever. With nanomachine zombies, mind-controlling hands, and about 1 million clones walking around, the story can be messed up, but it keeps you invested with its fantastic writing. This is in large part due to the brilliant work of Hideo Kojima. However, that doesn't mean that there haven't been a few games that slipped out that are so far-fetched that even Kojima refuses to accept them. These are the main, non-canon games. Ghost Babel was on the Game Boy Color and followed Snake 11 years after the events of Metal Gear Solid. While it is considered a sequel, it basically tells the same story, even randomly making us fight Metal Gear Rex all over again. This one sits in an odd place because it sort of bridges the gap in gameplay between the older and newer games. Next up is Acid, and as I'm sure you can tell just by looking at it, this is the most mind-bending of them all. You use cards to move players around the map and to use weapons. Consider this a cross between Final Fantasy Tactics and Magic the Gathering, except with some extra crazy art added in. The final entry on this list is the only Metal Gear that never actually had Metal Gear in the title. Snake's Revenge was made as a direct follow-up to the original game on the Nintendo. The graphics are primitive, but by 1990 standards, this game was considered very brutal. In fact, a lot of Metal Gear fans were turned off by just how violent it could be. Since it had such a mixed reception, Konami just quietly pretended that it never happened. It's incredible to think that Hideo Kojima grew Metal Gear Solid into one of the most successful series of all time, before eventually leaving it all behind. Did your favorite fact not make the list? Got an idea for a future video? Leave it in the comments down below. I really take your suggestions seriously, and I want to thank everybody who really pushed me to make this episode. Thank you, you guys rock. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to go play a little bit of Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. Because seriously, if you haven't played this, this is probably one of the best remakes of all time, and it's really weird. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video, maybe check out my last video. Please subscribe, and if you want, share this somewhere with your friends.